If you're looking for best practices for your bank or credit union, join us while we talk all things sales, marketing, and strategy for financial institutions. Let's make it happen with FiGrow Solutions.
Hi there, I'm Meredith Olmstead, CEO and founder of FiGrow Solutions. We are a digital marketing and sales consulting company, and we work exclusively with banks and credit unions. And I am here with our Chief of Strategy, Penny Vanderbush. Say hi, Penny.
Hey there.
So we were just having a really awesome conversation about, a few different projects that we've been managing over the last, 6 months or so, and kind of reflecting on things that we've been learning around how to keep projects moving forward on time. Specifically, we were talking about website projects. So I was like, let's hit record on this. There's some good takeaways here for our users, for our readers, people who visit and people who are just contacts for us. So I wanted to share this with other marketers in the industry because I think this is really useful. So one of the biggest challenges with website projects is keeping them moving on time. And we always find hey, we feel like we can build a really solid digital branch for our clients, like start to finish. We should be able to do it, no problem, 6 months. Okay. And that sounds like a long time, but it's a huge lift, right? So it's a really big project. There's a ton of people involved. And I'm talking writing 80 to 100 pages of content, getting it all approved, getting it launched, full redesign, all the development, everything, 6 months. You should be able to do it. No problem. But I'm constantly hearing from people, and we are running into it too, who don't meet that 6 month kind of time frame for website projects. I just was talking to a colleague at a credit union out in Arizona. They started a website redesign in January and it didn't launch until September or October or something crazy like that. Not with us, but with somebody else. So I was like, wow, what are the lessons that we're learning about how to keep these big projects moving on time? So Penny, you had some right out of the gate, you had some really good suggestions. Where do people need to start?
Yeah, I think starting right from the beginning, having the right people in the room. We've definitely experienced times where we're at kickoff meetings, we're starting wireframe, initial design, and layout, just strategy meetings. And then we'll find out that we're missing people who are going to be decision makers or who have value add at that stage, or that we have far too many people in the room.
Yeah.
And we've definitely gone to kickoff meetings before where there's a large audience in the room and everyone has shown up and it's almost too many opinions too early to move things forward. So I think it's an understanding of who needs to be involved at which phases of the project and make sure you have the right people from the start, whether that's removing some people from the meetings or bringing in some key stakeholders who should be there.
I sometimes say lean towards keeping executive team members off of the initial phases and really only including them once you have a solid direction and you're moving forward into almost final approvals for development, really, where you have, fleshed out kind of the entire look and feel of the project, the, home pages, product pages, all of that, and then bringing in just for some final buy-in and maybe a few little tweaks. But I'd say, rule of thumb, no reason for a CEO to be involved in the design phase, really. I mean, it just slows things down and honestly can feel like it might not be the best use of his or her time.
Right. And I think in order to accomplish that, you need to have conversations leading up to that point in which the strategy of the site, the new digital branch has been determined. There's going to be lead capture. It's going to be ADA compliant. It's going to be responsive. You have to trust the agency that you're working with to be delivering a quality end product. Because I feel like a lot of the times when we see a lot of executives into the room, they're trying to check these boxes that really should just be standards, but yet many people aren't developing with all of the standards that should be there. So I think when you have the right agency helping you, who really understands all of that, then the executives shouldn't feel like they have to be in the room to ensure that those boxes are checked.
The other thing too is making sure your brand is fully intact and ready for a new project, like whatever kind of project you're going through. Because a lot of people, I think, come to website projects and development and the design phase of it. And they're like, oh, let's redo this. Let's, and then you go to try to, reference their brand guide or the look and feel that they've had in the past. And they want to go in a completely different direction, but you don't really have capacity or the time built into the project initially for like a rebrand, and even so if you need a rebrand or need to spend some time rebranding before you go into a website project, that might be a whole separate project.
Absolutely. I think we need to hitting record on the episode on what to do before you start your website project.
Yeah, really.
Because there are so many things that need to be in place before you even get to this point that we're talking about today.
Yeah. So once you're there and you've got the right people in the room, what else do we need to make sure that things keep moving forward?
Yeah, you definitely need the right project management tool. And there's so many project management tools out there. So it doesn't really matter which one you're using as long as it works and it's effective. I think it's finding that balance of how to use the tool. If you spend too much time training everybody on how to use a brand new project management tool, then it can get clunky. You want to keep it as simple as possible. But you need it to also be accurate and detailed. So we like to, when we organize our projects, there's a visual aspect and it kind of just moves left to right across the screen for every single page on the website. So you can see all of like the deposit pages or consumer loan pages visually at a glance. You can see where they are in the process, which ones are still having content drafted, which ones are over in compliance, getting approved. So that simplicity is fantastic. But then also within that, be able to have a spot where you can click on, let's say, that auto loan page, and it opens up the details and the notes and the conversations that have been had about, let's do this on the page, let's not do this on the page, make sure this is included on the page. Yeah. And so I think that's really important. But you brought up a great point too around multiple lines of communication that inadvertently can sometimes mucky the waters, right?
Yeah. So like sometimes we've had where you'll have people trying to like instant message about details or a bug or something or an issue on a page. And then they might shoot an email to a few people involved. And then they might put a comment in Asana is our project management tool. They might put a comment on the page in the project management tool. So now you've got 3 different conversations about the exact same issue. Disaster. Definitely very inefficient. You want to make sure you consolidate your lines of communication around the project down to one consistent main area to drive communication. And if you have to communicate in another one, just make sure you bring the takeaways back to that main line so that you have some place where you have a record of all the back and forth. The other thing I love about project management tools is a lot of people are super visual. It's really nice to have that across. It's nice if there's dates involved, maybe there's a way to calendar things. If not the end of the world. But the other thing that I like is having things color coded. So you can really see, okay, everything that's green is done, everything that's red needs attention, orange, yellow, like whatever, you can add some layer of color coding, not to make things complicated, to make it more clear, to make it more glanceable, easier to see where your attention needs to go immediately. So that can be very helpful.
Huge. That's huge in the approval process because typically the people, you've got marketers or the agency that you're working with is developing, your SEO content, SEO rich, you're checking all the boxes behind the scenes and, in the code, and then your on-page content, but then that needs to move into potentially an executive, member who is like the lead of, let's say, consumer loans, or, it needs to go over to compliance, whether you have internal compliance resources or external compliance resources. And so these are people who probably have not been involved since the start, but now they're needed. The content is ready for final approval based, the department head's manager of that department, when they can jump into a project management software and it's very clear based on the columns and the color coding, like I can see the content's been drafted. I can see the images have been loaded. I can see the lead captures done. Now here I am. Now it's my turn, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to review the page, and then I'm going to mark it as approved. And then I can see when I'm done, it's going to jump to compliance. And then when compliance is done, right? So it's kind of like that. If you can have people step in through the approval process later in the game into your project management software tool, and it's so easy for them to understand, that is huge in continuing to like stay on track with your with the timeline.
I will say the fewer people involved in the approval process, the better. Absolutely. So we have seen approval processes that involve like 8 different, steps. Very, very impactful, can be very negatively impactful on timeframes. We did just recently have to delay a launch by a few weeks, not terribly, but like a couple weeks because of internal approvals and also internally crafting content, writing content that was taking longer than it should have. So that's probably the last thing I'll say is, well, there's 2 last things, but definitely getting somebody to help. I mean, like bringing in a third party to help write content, to help push your decision makers and your department chairs forward when it comes to approvals, to make sure compliance is getting things done and back to you in a timely manner. That's where we definitely come in. We do the heavy lifting when it comes to actually writing the on-page content for our clients. It's a huge, huge win when it comes to keeping projects on schedule. And then the last thing, which is like, you always say this one, about when it comes to making decisions, pretty much around anything, but let's talk about website projects.
Right. Yeah. So consent versus consensus. If you want consensus of a full room of people with 15 different opinions, you'll be in that room all day long. Yeah. And so at each approval step, whether it's back at wireframe and design, or if it's closer to final launch, there needs to be somebody who is making the final decision. And what you're asking the people in the room for is their consent to move forward with that decision, which means if there's not a business reason to stop this decision, if this decision is not inappropriate in some way, it doesn't meet compliance or regulation, or, really is wrong or incorrect, then you can absolutely like speak to that and stop it. But otherwise, you just do I have your consent to move forward with this decision that I made? And the people in the room have to be willing to give their consent and say, yeah, like personally, it's not my personal choice. I want to pick that design. I wouldn't have worded it that way, but it's not wrong.
Right.
It's not incorrect or against our brand or anything like that. So I think it's really important, not only in website projects, but really in every meeting and 100%. Every culture. If you can adopt, like, we're not in this room for complete 100% consensus from everybody here to get everyone's opinion to align. What we're here to do is put something on the table, a business matter, make a decision, and just ask for people's consent to move forward with that. Yeah. And I think that's really big in keeping website projects, huge. On time, because there's so many opinions can factor in with a digital branch build.
And it can be and design is so subjective. That's what we always try to remind our clients of. Look, this is a very subjective process. You're going to have, if you go out and survey your members to see of all of these 5 logos, which one do you like the most? You're going to get people who like them all. Instead, let your trained professionals who know design, who know marketing, who know, market research and your membership, really make those hard, more subjective design decisions, and then keep the approval process around making sure that you're checking all the boxes for compliance and that the user experience makes sense, that it's easy, that you haven't put up any unforeseen roadblocks around if somebody lands on a page and they can't find something they're looking for. I mean, that's really what's key, is making sure that your digital branch is intuitive. It's easy for the user to navigate and understand. And it also gives them a feeling of trust, of that they have, that they're confident in your institution, and they know that you all are a reputable institution that has their best interest at heart at the end of the day. Absolutely. So awesome. All right. These are great tips. Thanks so much, Penny. We have a lot of other really great podcasts on the website. Please visit us at figrow.com and check out some of our other, our blogs and our tips. All of our podcasts are like this length, 10 to 15 minutes. So pretty easy to navigate through. So good luck with all of your upcoming projects. And in the meantime, let's just all get out there and make it happen.